This game, it feels a little different. Feels like Florida's playing a little bit better, and it is going to be interesting to see Georgia play an entire game without the use of Brock Bowers now.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how the optimism of the Florida fan base has risen so quickly after one game, and I'm a little skeptical. You beat a 2-win South Carolina team that you're down by 10 with less than 5 minutes to go. I'm really happy for Florida to be able to kind of get that win and what that may signal for the future. But I got to see a couple weeks in a row of not only the fight that these guys had, the energy that they had, but the offense and the willingness to stretch the field. The vertical passing game is something that really hadn't been utilized a ton to this point in the season prior to that South Carolina game. They hit, I think, 11 explosive pass plays of 20 yards or more against the Gamecocks. So I want to see them still continuing to be aggressive with the play calling, but it certainly has a lot of Gator fans feeling pretty optimistic going into Jacksonville this weekend.
Doering, all these fan bases are insane. When you've got a really good, passionate fan base, there is a level of insanity, but the schizophrenic fan base that is the Florida Gators, you're right. I mean, after the Utah loss, it was like, this dude sucks, he's got to go. Then, they went 3 straight. Tennessee, they bounce right back, everything's good. They get shellacked by Kentucky, dude's got to go. They've won back-to-back games, including the South Carolina game you were talking about. But when you look at this schedule, it is brutal down the stretch. And there is a chance this team could go 6-6. At 6-6, where is this fan base after year 2?
Yeah, it's a great point because you look at it. Maybe the only win that you're feeling really good about is the Arkansas game coming to Gainesville next weekend. But and I look back to last season. You go have maybe your best performance on the road in College Station. You beat South Carolina at home. You're feeling good about potentially getting to 8 wins, and then you lose to Vandy and you lose to Florida State to cap the season off, and it feels very different with a 6-6 season as opposed to what was available to potentially get to an 8-4 year. It's very, very reminiscent of last year as you look at the schedule. But I do think that this is a team that is better in terms of overall talent. I think they've upgraded the skill players around the quarterback. Graham Mertz has done a tremendous job. I don't know about what you guys thought, but heading into the year, I probably wouldn't have had him in the top 10 of the SEC quarterbacks. I think he is probably in the top 3 right now, has done a great job in what he's being tasked to do. A lot of talent in the skill players around him. And then defensively, they've improved the defensive line significantly. And I think you're seeing that manifest itself in their ability to get off the field more on third down. They're creating more third and long situations. They're playing better in terms of their overall discipline. And I think that this is a team that is headed in the right direction, particularly given the fact that Florida right now, number 3 in the 2024 recruiting class, which has Florida fans feeling even more optimistic.
How do you think Carson Beck is playing this year as the new quarterback at Georgia?
Yeah, we've been very critical of the schedule that Georgia played so far. And obviously the Oklahoma game getting removed from week 2 makes it look much more easy. But I do think that it's been perfect for this Georgia team as a whole and perfect for Carson Beck because he has been able to get his feet wet. He has been able to learn on the fly a little bit here and not being forced into some really difficult positions. I love the way they came out, played against Kentucky, scoring on their first 6 possessions of that ball game. This will be an interesting game for Carson, returning to his hometown of Jacksonville, maybe the toughest test to this point in the season. But I do think that this is if you're Austin Armstrong in this Florida defense, let's test him. Let's see how comfortable he is, especially without that safety blanket Brock Bowers not being available to you. So I do think that this is one that's going to go a long way and helping define what we think of Carson Beck. And let's be honest, this is a brutal 4-game stretch for the Bulldogs. I don't know that I've ever seen an SEC schedule with 4 successive games as challenging as having to play against Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, and going to Knoxville. If he makes that run all the way through and they stay unscathed, I think you might see his name start to be inserted in some Heisman talk.
Dude, don't make me go pull up the SEC West over the last 5-6 years. I'll find a schedule tougher than the one you just read out.
In 4, so you find me 4 successive games that are as difficult as those, and I will come back on the show and apologize to you.
Okay, I'll work on it, but I'll have to use the other 2 because they have very
smartly kept my your phone number out of my phone. They've got it, so I'll have to send it through Brown or LT. I wanted to ask you though, Dominic Lovett and Ra Thomas. Did you expect more out of them this year when they went into the Georgia team? Because off season we talked a lot, man. Look what they're adding at the receiving corps.
Yeah, I think I did. But I think it's probably more about the success of some other players. You look at what Rosemary Jack Saint has done this year, has been a focal point of the passing game. You look at having Ladd McConkey back is certainly a big factor now. All we heard in the offseason was how much Dominic Lovett had acclimated to this offense. But, Ra is one that maybe was having a little bit of a harder time. Neither of those guys has really been the standout number one, but maybe that's what this team is. It's Brock Bowers as the number one target and a bunch of supporting cast members around him. And I think that's what makes it interesting this week is like, all right, you don't have one guy that can go do everything that Brock Bowers can do. So how do we take pieces that remain in this offense and use what they're able to do to supplement those things that Brock Bowers has that you won't have available for the next month?
I hate to debunk it this quickly, but I literally pulled one schedule, and you tell me if this is more difficult. At LSU, Texas A&M, at Ole Miss, at Alabama.
Are we talking about 4 successive weekends with no buys in between or anything?
Okay, I have not checked if there was a bye here. This is Arkansas. Now, they've lost 6 straight games, but they lost at LSU, against A&M, at Ole Miss, at Alabama, 4 consecutive on the schedule. I don't know if there was a bye in there or not.
I'm going to defend Doering here.
I'm talking about with no buys.
Okay, let me check.
And I'm going to defend Doering here. I think we were talking about contenders too. Like, Georgia's a contender having to face that. I mean, if you're Vanderbilt or a lower tier team, you're going to run up against 4 ranked teams in a row.
Every 4 game stretch for Vandy.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, we were over at this end of the table. We were talking about contenders, championship races over at this end.